Hi there! Welcome to this introductory class about translation as a profession. So, I know that you guys have signed up for this course and you want to be translators, but today I want us to have a little fun and wonder what exactly is a translator and why we can't be replaced by machines. I know that a lot of people think that translation is a dying profession, but it's actually thriving. And what's interesting about translation as a profession is that we get to explore different cultures, different activities, different roles, even. And maybe you guys don't know this, maybe you do know this, but most translators today don't just sit on their laptops and translate. We do a bunch of different things. We might be interpreters, we might be helping people understand the differences in culture, we might be working at a hospital, we might be working at a court, a civil court, or any other kind of court. We might be working at an immigration office, or we might be working for human rights organizations, or activists, or any number of things. And what's interesting about translation is we don't really work with words. I know that a lot of you guys think that what we do is sort of transform words from one language into another. What we actually do is work with people and communication. And I wanted to show you guys some examples of how that or what that looks like in real life. And also what that looks like when we make fun of it or when we sort of put it as a joke or wonder what is behind our work. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to share with you guys a very short part of a very short video that you guys can watch on YouTube if you want. And I think it's interesting because it's actually meant to be funny, and it really is. It's very funny. And I think that one of the things that we learn from this video is that we are communicators, that translators, interpreters, what we do is communicate. So here it goes. Let's watch a tiny bit of this YouTube video, and we will discuss a few issues that arise from this joke, basically the skit, after we watch a few seconds of it. Here it goes.
Este trato es muy grande. Yo nunca he hecho esto antes, bro.
Tranquilo, hermano. Simplemente traduce exactamente lo que dicen.
Exactamente lo que dice. Ok. El jefe will see you now. Come with me. El jefe.
I got the money. You got the weapons.
If you want to talk to him, you talk to me.
Oh, you're the translator.
Ah, tú eres el traductor.
No, tú eres el traductor.
No, you are the translator.
Okay? I got the money.
Y yo tengo el... Ay, perdón.
No te escuché, tosiste.
I didn't hear you, you coughed.
No, I didn't. I didn't cough, you coughed.
No, yo no tosí, tú tosiste.
Deja de decir que yo tosí.
Stop saying...
Okay, so I think that's enough for you guys to sort of get an idea of what we are talking about and what the funny part about, or what the joke is, basically. So the punchline is basically that translating exactly word for word or exactly everything that's happening without any regard to context or communication purposes can actually kill you. I mean, spoiler alert, at the end, they end up killing the translator, killing the messenger. That's because the translator doesn't know what he's doing, and he doesn't understand his role in this situation. That's why I wanted to sort of think about what the role of a translator is and an interpreter in this case is. So we know that there's a difference between translation and interpretation, but this difference is becoming less and less clear as texts change and communication strategies change. So technically, the man that we see on the video is an interpreter, not a translator. But translation actually today works in the same way. As translators, we need to understand context, we need to understand the people involved, we need to understand what our purpose is. And one of the interesting things about translation today is that technology can help us with the words. Technology can help us even with idiomatic expressions or with words that are very difficult, with terminology, with specialized terms. But what it can't help us with is knowing what is right for each context, what is right for each situation, and understanding at a human level what the other person needs from us. And so that's what's happening here in this video. I think that even though this video is not made by translators for translators, it sort of understands that translation is about bridging gaps in communication, but also about being human, right? About human communication and about cooperation and about context and all of these things that you will hear about throughout the classes that you take to become a translator. So another thing that I think is very important is that we understand that a faithful translation or an exact translation or word for word translation is not always what we need or not always what is correct or what is appropriate for each context. So notice that translator in this video actually does translate everything word for word or translates pretty accurately what's going on. What he doesn't do is understand the context. So his translation is not correct. It's not appropriate. It's actually wrong, and it ends in a fatal mistake, which is being involved in such a way that gets you killed, basically. Now, translators being killed is not something that I like to joke about because it's something that actually happens a lot, unfortunately, even today. There are interpreters and translators that work for human rights that get killed or get threatened every single day in the world that we live in. And it used to be like this as well when translators translated the Bible and they translated something that people didn't like or the church didn't agree with. And even some translations of the Bible ended up dividing Christianity into different branches. So I think it's important to understand what is funny here and what is not funny about this video. I would like to show you another video also on YouTube about how a translator or an interpreter can very much understand the situation, the context, and the objectives and the functions of their translation. So let me show you this video that is very recent, that is from this year. And this is the sign language interpreter for Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl. So let's see how she deals with communication, with bridging gaps, and different cultures. Okay, so a few things about this translation or interpretation job. Number one, you may notice that the interpreter is in the middle of the screen. It's in the center of the screen. It's more important than the artist that's actually singing, who's Bad Bunny. We still see them in a smaller screen, but probably you have seen other instances in which sign language interpreters are very small or appear very small on probably the corner of your screen. And in this case, it's quite the opposite. And that's because our sign language interpreter here is actually the main event for deaf people, right? Because deaf people can obviously enjoy what's happening, they can obviously enjoy the music, but, or not the music obviously, but the dancing and the colors and the scenery. But what they can't enjoy is the music. So how do we help them enjoy the music, or how do we make it so that they can enjoy all of these different things at the same time? We focus on the interpreter. And this is what's interesting to me. The interpreter isn't just interpreting the lyrics, because honestly, music isn't really just about lyrics. If you think about it, most people who are listening to Bad Bunny on this halftime show for the Super Bowl don't really understand what he's saying, right? So the lyrics aren't the most important thing in this case. And really, to be honest, in most cases, most songs have interesting or have a success when they have interesting lyrics, but they can also be successful without interesting lyrics. So the lyrics are not the most important thing. The rhythm is very important. And how do we show a deaf person the rhythm? How do we get them involved? How do we make the experience as interesting, as fun, as exciting as the experience for a non-deaf person? And this is what the interpreter is doing. She's showing us, or showing deaf people, and actually showing everyone, that she can bridge that gap, that she can actually help all of the audience have a similar experience, regardless of their abilities, whether or not they're able to hear the song or understand the song. So you may have also noticed that the original video, the Bad Bunny songs, are in Spanish, and they are not, or they don't have any subtitles, and of course they are not dubbed. And this is because it's so important to understand the context, and it's so important to understand how groundbreaking it is to have an artist that sings in Spanish in the middle of the most traditional American sort of party or festivity, we could even call it, which is the Super Bowl. So I want to show you something a little more serious, a little less fun, that also shows how translation is not necessarily the best way to go in some contexts. Okay, so some of you may know who Zoran Medmani is. He is the mayor of New York City as of this year. And we will watch a video where we see him speaking in broken Spanish. It's actually kind of okay, I would say. But he speaks Spanish. He's not a native Spanish speaker, of course. And I'm not even sure he actually speaks Spanish. I think he maybe just memorized these words. And we will see him with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is an American representative of a district in New York. And according to her, she does speak Spanish, and I'm not sure if it's her first language, but it is her the language of her family, because her family comes from Puerto Rico. And what I want to see is how they handled the linguistic aspect, and how the linguistic aspect of this video is really essential to politics, and to the message that it's sending. So let's watch this video for a little bit.
Semana para que los padres registren a sus hijos para el año escolar 2026-2027. Así que para dar un último esfuerzo decidí atraer una amiga.
Hola.
Mi español no es el mejor.
No te preocupes, alcalde. Si su hijo o hija está cumpliendo 3 o 4 años en el 2026, usted puede registrarlos gratis.
Okay, so I think that's enough for you guys to have an idea of what's going on in this video. So you may notice that there are subtitles, and the subtitles are both in English and in Spanish, but the video is entirely in Spanish. And it's not just in Spanish, like in well-spoken and very grammatically correct Spanish. It's in the kind of Spanish that these two people are able to produce. Now, some of you may wonder, okay, well, we have AI technology. We could absolutely do a video where they speak English, which is their native language, and they can just dub it or just include subtitles. Why don't they just do that? And this is something that we as translators can understand and can actually give advice on. And why is it so important for these people to speak in Spanish, right? These politicians to speak Spanish. Number one, because there are many Spanish speakers who don't necessarily know how to read in Spanish in the US. And also because speaking Spanish and making the effort to speak another language actually shows that they care about this population. So obviously using AI or a translator or an interpreter is much easier, but it's actually the effort that they're putting into this that shows how they or what they care about and how they care about this specific community. So why did I show you guys these videos? What is the point of this class? Well, the point is to sort of think about translation as more than just words. Words are not necessarily easy to translate. Obviously, we know that there are a lot of idiomatic expressions there are a lot of words that are not very easy to translate from one language to the other. But I think one of the most important things that we do as translators is think about context, think about the people that we are trying to reach. And I think that's one of the things that is most important in our profession. It's one of the things that is most difficult to replace with AI, right? Because AI can maybe give you advice based on the past, but it can't really give you advice based on the future. So in the past, probably most politicians, what they did was hire an interpreter or write subtitles for their videos if they wanted to include the Latin community from a certain place. But maybe the future can bring innovation, it can bring new tendencies, it can bring new ideas. And those new ideas are very difficult to sort of evaluate and create and maybe even brainstorm with AI. What we can do as human beings and as translators who are trained to understand different cultures and to understand the political and social and cultural situation of each community and each context is actually give advice and suggestions. And that means that we not only work as freelance translators, which is probably what most of you imagine translation to be. We can also work as part of broader projects that are about internationalization of content or internationalization of projects. We can work for international projects, international NGOs, international institutions. And we can suggest marketing strategies, we can suggest localization strategies, we can suggest a lot of different context dependent and human driven strategies in order to communicate better and to be closer to our audience and to actually work with the people, for the people who are not only listening but also reading and consuming the content that we not only translate but also create. So that's basically what I wanted to brainstorm during this session. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do this interactively, so I hope that you guys have a lot of ideas and a lot of questions about what translation is and what different activities and what different jobs you can have after you finish your translation courses. And I hope you can sort of imagine what your work will be like beyond the written word, beyond the linguistic aspect of it, which is also very important. But there are other interesting factors that I would like you to keep in mind, and you will definitely learn about throughout your throughout the following 4 years of your life. So welcome. Have a great first week, first month, first year, and I will see you in your second year because my class is Práctica Profesional 2,